What up, kids and squids? Welcome to the Nintendo Everything Podcast, Episode 2. I am your host for this week, Oni Dino, and I am joined by my Australian cohort, Eric Zouch.
Hello everyone, I would like to invite you to stay a while and listen.
That's a pretty good reference.
Obviously I've been playing too much Diablo.
Yeah, I can obviously tell that. But instead of Diablo, right now I know there's one thing that everyone is dying to know. Are you team salsa or are you team guacamole?
Honestly, I'm like kind of team none of the two.
What?
I know. I'm not a dip person. The only guacamole I know is the game, and I don't know.
You're not a dip person? Are you like anti-fun as well?
Well, you know, there's better things in life than dip. Let's just put it that way.
No, like salsa and guacamole are both like two of the best things, and I can't even be forced to choose. This Splatfest that's coming up is just like way too much for me.
You can't be forced to. Okay, one, you're going to have to choose, and secondly, surely like there's this. Well, what are you? Okay, I'm struggling to understand the whole dip concept here. Maybe it's just where I'm from, but like, what do you actually? Is it just crackers you're dipping into these, or do you have some sort of special recipe going?
It's tortilla chips.
Tortilla chips. Okay, so you got to chip chips. Okay, like I don't know. I'm not Mexican. I don't know what like. And I also don't know if that's super racist. I'm sorry, but
no, it's not. It's not. I think probably that's part of why. Like the States has such a strong influence on like dips and chips. It's the stronger Latin influence in our food.
I get this so often with Splatfest too. Like there's a lot of stuff that you don't really understand when you're Australian. A lot of the terms are so different down here, and so like, you know, when they go like tomato or ketchup, I don't know what the difference is there. Don't ask me.
You don't know the difference between a tomato and a ketchup?
No, like yeah, what's tomato sauce and ketchup? What's the difference there?
Oh. So well, Oh, this is not interesting. We should not be going into the difference. Okay, so let's get started on our weeks. What have we been up to? What have we been playing? What came up on the site recently and our YouTube recently? Eric, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I suppose I can kind of roll into it. Now, like, I want to talk about Diablo 3, because obviously I've been playing a little bit of that. But before I kind of move into Diablo 3, I do want to mention that last week we actually talked about that Diablo mobile game. And I have some more thoughts on that, because I went back and I actually watched their presentation, which we'll get into in a second, but that was just horrible. So, like, I kind of have a few retractions from last week. I said that that it could be coming to the Switch, and no, that's not coming to the Switch anytime soon. Like, it's very different to that Final Fantasy Pocket Edition that I was talking about. First of all, Final Fantasy Pocket Edition was like a chapter-based game, so it was like easier to kind of port to the eShop. This game, it seems much more like, it's hard to tell, but it seems much more like it's going to be dipped in microtransactions more than anything else. So I don't see like that coming over the Switch, and I don't see Nintendo wanting them to bring that onto the Switch personally. And also watching the conference, like at one part of me was like, oh, gamers like are kind of overreacting to this a little bit, which they did, and they do, that's gamers. But honestly, the conference was just like horrendous. What were they thinking bringing this as their like main showpiece to BlizzCon? Like this is the game that people show up to watch their biggest and best games that they have, and these are console gamers and PC gamers at heart, and so showing them a phone game, of course it was going to get a bad reaction, and which it did. It got a horrible reaction from the crowd, and like to the point where the crowd would literally booed them when they were basically showing it, and the guy on stage was like, literally taunting the crowd, saying, "Do you guys not have phones?"
Oh man, I was gonna turn that on you. I was gonna just like be like, Eric, I don't see what the problem is. Do you not have a phone? But you beat me to it.
I can't believe it. Like, who in their right mind would do that? Who in their right mind would be like, "Oh, this is our biggest fans," and then I'm going to say, "Do you guys not have phones?" Like, literally taunting their own crowd. Like, come on, guys. Like, get it together there. It was a horrible move. And then the rest of the conference was just them taking questions from the fans, and the fans basically being like, literally one of them said, "Is this a joke?" And like they tried to, the worst thing they did was try to spin around these comments. They're like, "No, this isn't a joke. This is our new mobile game, and we're just playing this and this and this for it." It's like, guys, you're not getting the point. These guys do not want to. Just stop whatever you're doing now. So I just wanted to take this chance to retract my statement on that Diablo mobile game.
Let it die.
Yeah, let it. Seriously, let it die.
Keep it over there. Don't let it in.
No, it does not need to come in. Like the internet exploded when this happened, but I feel like it was almost warranted in some way just from the way they displayed this. Like there's a place for a Diablo mobile game. It's not at their biggest event in the world that they show their Blizzard games off.
Totally. Like, what were they expecting? That's the golden question, is what were they expecting on that? What they should have done is they should have showed teasers or whatever the hell of Diablo 4, and then been like, also, we have this thing coming out. Then people would not have overreacted so much. People would have been like, whatever. But, Diablo 4's coming, so cool. You know what I mean? Exactly. That's basically what Bethesda did at E3 with, like, the announcement of Elder Scrolls 6. Where like that trailer was absolutely nothing. It was like, look at some mountains, Like,
exactly. It's imagine like Nintendo coming back with their Mario Kart Tour, their mobile game, and literally like announcing a direct from that, getting gamers all hyped up, not telling gamers that it was going to be on a mobile game, and then just having like a 10 or 15-minute conference on just their mobile game. People would be outraged. They'd hate it. They wouldn't like it. That's not it's a small piece that you can't expect that you can just shove this mobile game at people and that they're going to want that. Yeah, so anyway, that was kind of my retraction from last week. Moving on to this week and what I've been playing as far as Diablo 3, because that is a really good game. Now, previously, I've played a lot of Diablo 3 in the past before. I played a lot on PC. I got several characters to max level, and then I kind of picked it up on the PS4, and I played it again all the way through on that. I love Diablo 3. I think it's a great game. But I've been playing a lot of the end game stuff in Diablo. This means like when you get to max level, you can kind of get more of this legendary equipment and upgrade your character. There's still a progression there that needs to be done. And so I kind of forgotten what the loop was like of actually getting a character to max level. Now, I've been playing this with Nat, which is super fun playing this in multiplayer. It's definitely a type of game that just playing with friends enhances the experience. But the loop of actually getting to the max level, and I especially found this playing with Nat and teaching her how everything works and how to kind of deck out her character and things like that. It's just so fun. They've really done they've done such a good loop here of the progression and the levels and the shops. It all just kind of slowly unlocks. Like every level that you kind of unlock in this game, every level that you unlock is just absolute joy, because you're going to get something. It's not just stats that go up. You're going to get some sort of new skill that requires you to go into your menu, look at your skills, and figure out if that's going to enhance your character or if that's going to change something, or should you change something. And it's amazing that they managed to do that for 70 levels of having like so much stuff unlock every level. And then because things are constantly changing like that, you're constantly changing the build of your character and deciding, if one little thing changes, it has a bit of a ripple effect of like, okay, well now I'm going to change this spell because now I'm based around fire spells, and I need to up my defense because I've changed this. And it's just so fun kind of going through those levels and getting to max level in the first place, that I almost don't want to get to max level ever, because I'm just enjoying this loop at the moment. As well as I mentioned, like the shops and stuff, they just slowly unlock. Like you eventually get the blacksmith, and then you get the crystal kind of shard shop, and then you get the transmogrification, or however you say that word, shop. So you slowly unlock. I hate that word. So you slowly unlock all these options, and it really kind of brings in this really fun progression, and I'm just enjoying getting back into that. Now, I did mention that I was playing with Nat. Now, only I don't know. Do you play any games with partner or family or anything like that?
These days, not so much.
Okay,
yeah.
So like I play a lot of games. Like anytime I get a chance to play a game with Nat, I do, because we don't get a chance to play that many games together. So playing this has been really fun. But the only thing about playing Diablo on one console means that when you're sharing the TV and playing together, when someone opens a menu, the other person is just sitting there and waiting. Now, it hasn't been too bad. I can imagine it being worse if you both knew how to play the game, but it hasn't been too bad because I've been kind of teaching Nat how to play, so we kind of have something to talk about as we're going through the menus and leveling up, and talking about what build she should do and things like that. So it hasn't been too bad, but it's the type of thing that I'd love for us both to have a copy each and be able to play the game together, or more be like the 3DS. Like I kind of wish that the Switch had more things like the 3DS where we could do share play and we could just have one copy of the game and share it between multiple Switches. But obviously that's
Yeah, I totally agree. I've thought about that several times for different software that have come out on the Switch.
Yeah, and this is like one of those games that just be perfect for it, because like it's a great multiplayer experience, and the fact that you got to pause every time you go into the menu, and that would be kind of changed if we had 2 switches going, would just be like so much easier for us. The last couple of things that I want to mention here is, one, loot is handled really well in this game. You may remember like loot in previous MMOs or RPGs with multiple players. It was never really handled that well. Like you'd have loot that would drop, and then it was kind of like, oh, did people roll on the loot, or does it kind of just, is it whoever can pick it up first? Where this is handled really well is in, like, when loot drops, everyone can see it, but as soon as you pick it up, it just goes straight to the person that it was meant to go to in the first place. It's already pre-designed to go to a person. There's no fighting over it. There's no who can get there first. And it seems like a small thing in 2018 to be complimenting, but it's something that's actually really big after like being one of the people that grows up on RPGs for so long, being like, oh, loot is such a problem.
Yeah, no, that's a great point to bring up. I think that's like for the most dedicated people, like you just said, it's a point of contention that has not ever been like fixed, that should have been fixed so many moons ago.
Exactly. And like some games, they all find different ways of trying to fix it, but I feel like this is the most elegant way so far that I've kind of come across. I'm sure there's still ways to improve it yet, but like I still think this is a really good way that they've kind of handled this. And the last thing here on Diablo is that it's very easy so far. So when you actually boot up the game,
wow,
yeah, I know, surprisingly, you get to choose a difficulty. You go to normal, hard, expert, or master. Now, I started the game on hard, so this is the second to lowest difficulty for me in that. Like, let's just call it level 2 for easy purpose sakes here. So we kind of started the difficulty on level 2, and then we're finding that we were just flying through this game. Like, this is Nat's first time playing it, and we're just flying through this game. Not an issue in the world. Like, nothing could even get close to stopping us. In fact, like, you know, I think we got to the first boss of the first major boss, and we took him down before he could even do, like, maybe it took us like 15, 20 seconds to kind of take him down. We're like, okay, this is too easy. We've really got to bump this difficulty up. Oh. So we ended up going to level 3, which is expert, which is harder, but it's still really quite easy. Like, we're still never having trouble. We're never getting close to dying. You can't just stand in there and let enemies wail on you and you're going to survive, but it's still not hard. So the next difficulty to kind of go up to would be Master, which is level 4. And we haven't done that because if you start on one of the first 3 difficulties, normal, hard, or expert, you can't then bump it up to Master until you've unlocked enough legendary loot. And the reason I mention that is that if you start the game from the very start, you can actually start it on Master. So if you really want a challenge and you're playing with multiple people, maybe think about starting on Master difficulty, because that will actually offer that challenge, which I did go back and try and master in single player, and it was super hard. Like, I could hardly even kill anything for level 1. So it's going to be, I think once you kind of get into it a little bit more and start unlocking some more items, Master will get easier as it goes, like the rest of them. But from the start of the game, if you really want that challenge and you don't, like, at some point in your levels, maybe don't think about starting on the first 3. Yeah, so that's kind of it for Diablo. Now, the other games that I've been playing, there's actually only one other one here, and I've really only dabbled in it. So that's Full Metal Furries, which I have been going, I don't know why, but I've been going into this thinking that it's called Full Metal Furies. And I'm like, I don't know Furies. What does Furies mean? I'm really kind of interested into this. Like, didn't even occur to me that it's Full Metal Furries. And then, like, the opening cutscene of the game is one of the characters, and he's a furry. He has a cat, and he has to leave his cat behind, or something along those lines. And I'm like, it's furries. So, like, it's just one of those kind of, oh yeah, moments for me. That was really surprising.
You're going on missions and dressing up in your fursuit and going to conventions, right? That's what this game is about.
You know what? I kind of wish that was the game. Like, I don't know why no one's made that game yet. That sounds like really awesome. This game, however, is a little bit more along the, you know what? I was going to say generic, but it's certainly not generic game. This is actually a really unique game. The idea is, it's hard to explain. And you know what? Instead of explaining this game, because I actually want to talk about it more next week when I've played a little bit more, because honestly, I've only played about 2.5 missions so far.
Okay.
Yeah, so instead of going into it this week, I think I might talk about that when I play a little bit more next week. The thing that I do want to talk about is Rogue Legacy, because that's all I can think about when I'm thinking of this game, because it's made by Celador Games, who obviously make both games, and it's just such a fantastic game. And I think the one thing about Rogue Legacy, it's super easy to get into because it's just a 2D action platformer. It's obviously this rogue light or light, whatever people want to call it, where you go into this dungeon and you're basically just trying to defeat all the bosses. But it's really quite hard. And then it has this really kind of great loop to it as you're going through these dungeons. Every time you go through there, you earn gold, and then you're gonna die. There's just no doubt about it. It's like any other roguelike game. You're going to die. There's no option there. But when you do, you keep the gold that you've got from this. You go back to the start and you upgrade your character, whether it be in stats, whether it be in items that you've got equipped, or these special runes that like literally change your powers from like multiple jumps and things like that. And so it's really exciting in that way, that every time that I went back into the dungeon, I was getting more powerful. And it's really rewarding is that the better you do, obviously you're going to get better and better at this. And the other thing that I think really stands out about this game is that it's actually more accessible than you'd think, because of this kind of loop of upgrading your character. When I got to when Nat was playing, because she absolutely adores this game as well. It's one of those games that we play together, but we're not actually playing together. When she played this game, she found that she could really get into it, because like her, okay, like I pay Nat out sometimes. I'm really sorry about this, but like her skill level is not quite as high as mine.
Oh no! Don't let her hear.
I know. On the podcast that we used to get together, me and Nat, she hated it. I always used to, like, unintentionally, I have to mention that, like, you know, I can't, there's no nice way of putting that she's worse at games than me.
You just got good.
I know, I just got good. There's some games that she, like, absolutely trounces me at, and I don't admit that because, like, very often because I don't like to, but...
Well, it doesn't fit the narrative.
No, exactly. But yeah, so this is one of those games that like she could like really get into, and normally she like struggle with any kind of really hard 2D platformer, because they're just like, they're meant to be brutally hard and they're meant for you not to like them and to kind of grind through them. And this one, it really emphasizes that by saying, even if you're like not very good at this type of game, you're still going to get through it, because you're going to come back there every time with more gold, until eventually you get to the point where you've upgraded your power enough that you're a god and you'll be able to take out everything really quickly and easy. And so yeah, there's just a lot of reasons to kind of keep coming back to that.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. I think that kind of summed it up for my week. I do have some more interviews going up on the site, which I will talk about maybe at the end of the podcast, because I've been taking up way too much time as it is.
No, it's totally cool. Actually, I was all ears on Rogue Legacy, because I saw some screenshots and I was thinking about it, and now you've really enticed me. So that might be my next purchase.
I didn't even tell you what the main loop of the game is as far as dying and coming back different each time, but I'll leave that for another time. That's really exciting as well.
Okay, and I also look forward to next week when you talk about Full Metal Furries.
Furries, yeah, not Furies. Make sure we get that right.
I had to really try to be sure I said the right word that time. So for me, I also been playing a few games. One game that I've been playing is an indie game that I downloaded a while ago, and for whatever reason just started it up this week. It's called Masters of Anima, and it is a top-down kind of a dungeon crawler real-time strategy game. It's got some Gauntlet Legends and Pikmin vibes to it. Some RPG elements, of course. It's got a great eye-popping art style, where you play as a summoner and you eventually get 5 different types of guardians to summon. Think of it like Pikmin. And these guardians do all different kinds of things and serve different roles. They solve different kinds of puzzles. There's lots of actually good puzzles that are surprisingly put in there in between the battles. So
that's surprising, because like, just speaking on that, like when we go to, like, when I think about normal games, like, you know, Pikmin has really good puzzles. I don't know why I said normal games there, like that's a thing, but yeah, in this genre, like Pikmin has some good puzzles to it, but like I don't think of any other games in this kind of RTS genre, if you want to call it that, that the puzzle RTS, that are really that great. Like I mentioned to you before, there's a game, Overlord, and I don't remember that having really good puzzle design to it. So the fact that this maybe has some sort of puzzle design that's enticing is kind of has me wanting to know more.
Yeah, the puzzles are not overly complex. There's a good variety of them, though, which really helps with just general game feel, general variety as you go through each level. It's a level structure, and you have battle arenas that you go into that you can sort of kind of tell, like, just a moment as you're going into it, you're like, oh no, there's gonna be a battle, oh my god. And then, you know, you get a battle arena, and that's fun. But as fun as the combat actually is, and telling your guys, okay, you guys go over here, you guys go over there, whoa, there's going to be an attack, all right, come back, and then now you got to move over there, use your special move, that kind of thing. As fun as that is, that's hectic, and just that one after another would be it would kill your flow. So these puzzles help to really not break that up, but add variety, add a spice.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Are they hard, the combat encounters themselves, or are they like not really that challenging?
Not really. I'm playing it on the normal difficulty, and I haven't really had much issue. I've only died a couple of times, and that was at some of these other like timed things. There's also these timed levels where you have to escape whatever is happening in the level, and you have to solve these puzzles really quick, and you have to break down these barriers, and if you don't do it in time, then you die and you have to start all over again.
I gotta be honest, that sounds just horrible. Anything timed, like that was always my biggest. Go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, normally my biggest gripe was like Pikmin and stuff like that. Like it's honestly the best part about the game. It's what makes the game what it is. But it's like one of my least favorite times is whenever there's like a time limit in the game. Like Pikmin is just, oh my god. And then like Majora's Mask. Like anytime I'm on a timer, I spend my entire time in that game in stress mode.
So I know exactly what you mean, because I'm usually very sensitive to that kind of stuff in video games for that exact same reason. But this was. It was just the right level of difficulty for me, because I didn't get stressed out. I was getting a little bit annoyed like on the second death, but every single time that I died, I always progressed further. And I was always like, oh, okay, I just got to do this one thing. So it was never like, oh, I died because of the time limit. It was, oh, I died because I didn't do this efficiently. But my next time around, I'm going to do it more efficiently. And I always did. So it was really well balanced, in my opinion. Yeah. So going back to the eye-popping visual style, it's got a bit of a cartoony vibe. The voice acting is charming and a little cheesy. It's got a bit of a Saturday morning cartoon vibe to it. So it gives your protagonist and your summoner girlfriend a really good personality each. So anyway, the takeaway is that if you're into Pikmin and combat side of things, then you should maybe give it a shot. It's on the eShop. Again, it's called Masters of Anima.
Yeah, cool. I'm really interested in that now, actually. I like looking at the art style. Is certainly something that grabs my attention. So,
the other game I've been playing is the newly released World of Final Fantasy Maxima. I tried out the demo on this game back on PS4 when it initially came out. I loved the art style and the way everything looked. I was so hyped for the game initially, and then when I tried out that demo on PS4, I was like, I hate this. I was like, what is going on? I don't like it at all. So I threw that away and never turned back on it again. Then with the announcement of the Maxima edition happening with some gameplay tweaks and whatever, I was like, all right, I'm gonna look into this again, because obviously I have to cover it for the site in some fashion. So I went back to the demo and I was like, you know what? I think that this is actually just a really poorly put together demo. And it was. They didn't introduce like anything of what was going on, even though there was like classic turn-based stuff that like you should be understanding.
Where was the demo set? Like, at what point in the game?
So I don't think I remember the map for sure, and it's early-ish on in the game. It's like chapter 3.
So they throw you kind of right into the middle of it.
Yeah, but I don't think that it was like story related at all. If I remember right, it was just that it used that map and it just kind of threw together characters. I never even finished the demo because I didn't like it so much. Like, they didn't explain the stacking system, which is unique, and like the capturing thing, which is a little bit like Pokemon, but a little bit not. And I don't know, it just needs a little bit of explanation. They're not hard concepts, but they're a bit foreign for like a game that is being pushed out as a turn-based RPG. So anyway, I decided to bite the bullet and I bought it, and I really like it, actually. It's very much a classic turn-based RPG. It's pretty simple, but there are some good quality of life features like speeding up battle, auto battle. There's a really awful menu option called Basic, which the menu just looks terrible, and I don't even know what I'm looking at usually, and you have to push your stick over to access only 4 commands, or like push up and it accesses another 4 command. I don't like it, so I just go to the classic version, which is just your classic Final Fantasy menu. Totally do that all the way if you're weirded out by the basic menu. That's terrible. So anyway, there's that. Menus can be a little bit cumbersome, but not too much, just like a little bit of a nuisance kind of a thing. Like it feels like, oh, I have to go to 2 menus or instead of 1, or 3 menus instead of 2, or something like that. Not that big of a deal, but just something to mention, I guess.
Yeah, like just to quickly kind of jump in there, my kind of thoughts on this game, because I have played this game through. Again, it's another like I got to
Oh,
stop
you already
mentioning
played it.
that. Yeah, I played it on PS4. I played it all the way through, and I love it. And again, to mention Nat and rope her into this, I played this all the way through with her. Like she played it through at the same time, and the PS4 were just kind of sharing between us, and it was just like a fantastic experience. I really just enjoyed like to me, they kind of created one of my favorite worlds that they've done in Final Fantasy. Like I enjoy Final Fantasy for as much as it is, but like this kind of light-hearted approach that they went with this world, and to have like all the kind of monsters and characters and everything having their own chibi version. I was all down for that. Like, that was just me in a cupcake. I tell you what. Like, so like at the end of the game, we finally finished it, and we were running our Nintendo podcast at the time, and like we're literally considering, oh, we should totally do a spoiler cast in this, but we can't because like it's a Nintendo podcast. But like we're just like we enjoyed it that much that we just wanted to do a spoiler cast because yeah, it was just a really Eric sort of game, and the stacking system, like you mentioned, is really kind of unique and kind of adds its own spin to its own like to the turn-based battle system.
Yeah, I totally agree. I can see so much of the charm hitting me now as I'm in early chapter 4, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying, collecting the little monsters and the cute versions of them. Like, oh, my Choco Chick is so cute. The little chocobo with the eggshell in his head. Oh, so good.
No, how good is that? The only thing is, talking about the monster capturing mechanic, if I remember correctly, which I probably don't, was it not just like some sort of chance that they would have hearts above the head, or you had to do something to kind of capture them? Can you explain that? Because I kind of forget.
So you can't just like throw out a Pokeball. It's not like that. So you have to examine them first with Libra and see what their opportunity to get caught is. Right. It's called a prism-tunity or something like that. That's another thing too that I was a little bit annoyed with the beginning of the game. They throw a whole bunch of like new jargon at you and just like way too many new words at once. Like, oh, prism this, and I don't even remember the other words. Like,
it doesn't need a new, like a lot of things that don't need a new word. Like,
exactly,
capture a monster doesn't need a new word.
Right, exactly. So that was annoying, and I was like, whatever, okay, fantasy words vomiting at me, I don't care. So anyway, you have to create your own prism-tunity for the monster, and each unique monster has its own unique prism-tunity. Sometimes it's just like deal a lot of damage, or hit him with a physical attack or a magic attack, but then sometimes it's other things, like you have to cast Protect on the Goblin Guard, and then that makes him suddenly have the prism-tunity, and you can throw your prism ball or whatever the hell it's called and then catch it. So that's how that system works. It's a little puzzle.
I do. I kind of enjoy that because it did add this puzzle variety. I just remember some of them being really hard. That frustrated me that I couldn't capture them because I didn't have the thing I needed to. Like, it might have been an item I had to use on them, or it might have been like I needed to take 50% of their HP in one hit, and it's like there's no way I can get close to doing that at this stage.
Oh yeah, I totally foresee that happening. I haven't come across that yet because I'm still way early in the game, but I can foresee that happening, and I'm just going to get annoyed.
Yeah, it does eventually happen, but like, again, like, it's one of those things, you really don't need every monster. It's only if you eventually want 100% the game you might think about going back and doing that.
Yeah. That's a personal problem. I can assure you, it's for sure a personal problem that I need to come to terms with. Anyway, so the last thought about the game is that the world is lighthearted and cute and super charming. Like, the visuals are great. It's really appealing in handheld mode, which is how I've been playing it the majority of the way. Your main characters are a little cliche, but charming nonetheless. And I do recommend it if you're a fan of RPGs.
I also recommend it.
Very cool. Hey, maybe we'll do that spoiler cast, huh?
Oh, yeah, we could actually do that.
Yeah, so look forward to that. Maybe we'll do a little spoiler cast on World of Final Fantasy Maxima. Okay, so this week we actually got some more information on some big news that happened last week. There was the quarterly financial meeting last week, and some additional information came out on it, and it was mostly the Q&A between Nintendo's investors and now Nintendo president Furukawa. Overall, the takeaway was that they have some aces up their sleeve for future ideas, sort of in the same vein as Nintendo Labo, where it's not just new software or whatever, it's possibly new ways to play. And the other takeaway is they want to broaden their user base, offer a wide variety of software, yada, 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 increase sales.
Yeah, just to quickly touch on that too, just
sure.
While we're there. I think that kind of takeaway is a little bit important there, because thinking about it, Sony and Xbox are only going to be so far off their next generation consoles. And so Nintendo needs something to kind of, I don't know, compete and continue to be relevant in the marketplace and one of the, have their face out there with everyone else. So I think that's maybe why they're touching on that. And so maybe it's a throwaway statement, but at the same time, it could be that they're working on big projects like Labo and something to kind of, stay relevant.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially to tap into different markets. They've seen huge success with the Wii, right? So they, of course, want to rekindle that success somehow in ways that are not the Wii U. So, that makes sense. I think edutainment is a completely separate thing from gaming, and it can be a viable business endeavor for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what else did we get out of this?
So, one thing I wanted to mention about this, though, is that we have to remember that it's a business meeting with investors, and it's not an E3, which is directed at dedicated consumers like ourselves. So, I've seen some comments on our site where some people have been saying, oh, this is very business-like, and these are very diplomatic or generic answers or something like that.
Which they have to be.
Yeah, they have to be because of the audience. And the perfect example to this is one guy in the Q&A even asked Nintendo, like, if they, something along the lines of, if they plan to make games for other hardware and to be cross-platform together, like basically like, for their competitors. And it's like, what? Why would you ask that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, of course, Nintendo would, to us as the dedicated consumers, we know the video game industry to the smallest degree. Like, of course, we don't even need to go into that. But my point is that these are the kinds of people that are there at this meeting. People with tons of money or just want to make tons of money.
When is Mario going to appear in the next Uncharted game?
That's what exactly. Can we get a Mario crossover with whatever Halo thing is happening or something like that? Right? Yeah. And it's just, those are the kinds of people that have no idea what kind of company they're even investing in. I saw that Pokemon Go had tons of money a couple years ago. When's the next Pokemon Go Fortnite? So those are the kinds of people that are there. So we have to kind of keep that in mind, I think. One of the biggest pieces of news that came out of this was when Furukawa was asked by an investor, they said that although there's a lot of games releasing on Switch from third-party publishers, there are some major games missing. And so Furukawa responded that Nintendo is basically in active talks with publishers. Based on how these talks have been going, he expects that titles will increase a lot more in the future. That's the real news of it. But the takeaway and the soundbite, okay, is when Furukawa responded with saying that it's unrealistic to expect every major release to also come to Switch. That's a pretty bold statement, right?
Yeah.
I want to roll into that just after I introduce this other piece of news too that adds to this conversation. The development team Virtuos says that they have some high profile and exciting games that they're working on for Nintendo Switch. Of course, they can't say what, but Virtuos has worked on LA Noire, Dark Souls, and Starlink for Nintendo Switch. So this adds into the conversation of, are we going to see more third-party titles, and are we going to see some? Is it unrealistic to expect every major release? What a no-nonsense statement, right?
I know, it totally is. I mean, there's a lot of things to kind of unfold and unpack from here, but like, just to kind of go on that, is it unrealistic to expect every major game to come to the Switch? I don't know, it kind of, in a way it is. So like, hear me out on this one, because like, the Switch it's a portable console, and without being portable, it wouldn't be the Switch. This means that they can't really compete on power as far as like the power race between Xbox and Microsoft. And if they did, they would literally have to have an Xbox with two Joy-Con attached to the side and a display on the front. And, like, I don't know anyone who wants to be holding that thing up. So like, there's no doubt that they can compete on power there. And what that actually means is that because of this, some developers simply not only don't want to develop on it, but they can't achieve their vision by developing on the Switch.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with those games and these people having their own vision for the way the game looks and the way way it plays. And if they can't make that run on the Switch, whether they could or whether they just don't want to, that's their vision for their game, and there's nothing that we can do about that. As well as like there's nothing that obviously nothing we can do, but like there's nothing Nintendo or anything can do about that, because Nintendo have their vision for their console, and that is the portable vision in mind, as far as we're aware for the time being. So for now, there's going to be games that simply don't make it their way to the Switch because of this. And I don't know. Again, it kind of comes down to the future as well when we're thinking about how games are developed. So from the start, like kind of bringing into a talk that happened earlier with Bethesda, and they basically said that they're making, or when they made, which was it, Doom 2016, I think it was, or whatever year it came out, the last Doom game, and their Wolfenstein game, when they created those in the first place, they created them kind of scalable, so they could scale them back down to the Switch eventually. They never had the Switch perfectly in mind, but like the game was made quite scalable. Now, when they're making their most recent game, Doom Eternal, they're making this from the ground up with the Switch in mind. And so, like, the idea is that from the very start, this is going to run on the Switch. That's in their mindset, and we're going to see that happening more and more from now on. But in the meantime, right now, we're going to have to rely on companies like Virtuos to hopefully port over some of those old games that maybe didn't have that vision in the first place, or maybe like we're talking about AAA games here. Some of these games, like it's not just the in AAA space; it's the indie space as well. Some of these games take years and years to make. So, like games that have been developed for 4 or 5 years, they might not be. You know, there's no way that they had the Switch in mind when they originally conceived this game, and so I think that's kind of where we're at. Is where hopefully games from this point on having the Switch in mind, but obviously not everything will.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. But I want to go back to what you said about the giant Xbox with the 2 Joy-Cons on the side. Can you imagine a Duke controller, the original Xbox controller, but it's like a Joy-Con thing? I think they could call it the Double Duke, and it would be what gaming absolutely would not want.
Yes.
It'd be the worst thing.
I think it's what gaming needs, though. Like, not wants, but needs.
Yeah, exactly what gaming needs, along with that hideous PlayStation rounded controller thingy, and then also the, like, sitting horsey Wii peripheral that Nintendo patented years ago. That's exactly what gaming needs. All 3 of those things, and let's just get real dumb. Let's do it.
So yeah, we attach them to the side of an Xbox, and then on the bottom of the Xbox, you know, like the third poke, like the third controller kind of holding thing for the N64. You shove that on the bottom of the Xbox, so you have your third grip down there with your analog stick. I think that's what gaming needs.
That's amazing. and there's a Kinect. Exactly what everybody wants, a Kinect.
Strapped to the top. Okay, we've gone too far.
Okay, so moving back though onto on seeing some of these higher profile games coming to the Switch. Let's take a lighter note on this. Let's go over to what Virtuos was saying. What kind of high profile games would you want to see coming over to the Switch? The AAA games or the larger games of this past year or perhaps last year?
Yeah, I love this idea because, first of all, Virtuos, like they worked on a lot of, like they work with a lot of high profile companies. Like they worked with Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Ubisoft, Square.
Yeah.
The list goes on. Like they've worked with like most of the big players in there. So there's kind of no limits to where they can kind of say, all right, we're going to get this game and put it on Switch. It's just who's going to be working with them. A lot of people are asking for Assassin's Creed. I don't know whether the newest Assassin's Creed could go over there, and I certainly don't see that much of a marker on Switch for the old one, so I don't know about that.
That's a bit of an interesting one, right? Because they release them almost annually. Like they used to be annual releases, now they're almost annual releases. Yeah. And I have a feeling that with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, they probably tried, and they were like, it's just easier to do a cloud version, let's just do that. But that also kind of alienates your people too, because like that's only going to work in Asia.
Exactly. And so like now if we're going to go more of a personal point of view and what I would like to see, for me, it's definitely the Ni no Kuni games.
Oh my God, yes. I was thinking the same thing.
No, you weren't. Get out.
Yes, I was. I have it written down.
No, Ni no Kuni, like that. First of all, those games are like the perfect fit for a Nintendo console. I can't believe they weren't on a Nintendo console in the first place when they were made.
Oh, totally.
And so like Bandai Namco has relationships with this in the first place, and we've got Dark Souls over there, so maybe we could see something like that. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities, and like I would love to see 1 and 2 come across separately. I would love it even more if there was a collection, but either way, that's definitely the number 1 on my list.
Very cool. Actually, though, I do have to sort of correct both of us on that. The original Ni no Kuni was released on the Nintendo DS.
Yes, I know. How good is that? And how weird a little fact is that the Domain of the Dark Djinn came out on the DS, and then we had Wrath of the White Witch on the PS3.
Right. And, you know, I could tell that, like, with that first game, there was something missing, right? Where you just, like, select your spells from a list and you're just like, oh, this is not engaging. But like with the 3DS, you got a little book that goes along with it, and you're flipping through your own spell book, and then you have to draw out your runes. Like, how exciting is that? I love that idea so much. But that is exclusively for total nerds, and I think that's asking too much of your actual consumer. I think that's only for people like us.
That everyone needs that. That was the best thing. I could go on, like, I literally could go on, and in fact I'm going to bring it up again later. I could go on forever about Ni no Kuni and how, like, it was just like a childhood dream of a game.
I know.
I just want to ask, what other games have you got in mind on your list?
So for me, I did have Ni no Kuni on there, but I would love to see the Yakuza series come back to Nintendo. It was on the Wii U before. It's been primarily a PlayStation release. Which, it was after Sega went full developer publisher, and they jumped out of the hardware race, because the precursor to the Yakuza series is sort of like Shenmue, unofficially. But anyway, Yakuza is full of craziness and all of these little mini games, and you have to manage your town, and you're trying to run like this portion of town, and it would work perfectly for like pick up and go play, because, you know, if you're out and about, you just be like, oh, okay, let me go check out what the real estate thing is happening with right now. Oh, let me go over to my cabaret club and see how my ladies are making me money. You know what I mean? Like, you can jump into those little things. There's all of these amazing little mini games that are fully fleshed out, and it's just a fantastic series that gives so much, and it goes like full stupid with a whole bunch of things that, like, as long as you appreciate like games getting real dumb, you would really enjoy the Yakuza series. So I would love to see that on Nintendo Switch.
You know what the best thing about you mentioning that is that the Yakuza series in general has had this kind of sudden resurgence of late. Like, I'm just hearing it everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of the podcasts I'm listening to, a lot of the people that I interact with are like, they're starting to get into the series. And so, like, I feel like the series is really kind of coming back into the limelight in a major way. And now is the time, if any, to get that series onto the Switch.
Totally agree. I think that also a part of that too is the localization. Not that the localization was bad before or something. It was fine in the mid part of the series, but it's really stepped up its game. And there's so much funny crap and so much like screenshotable stuff that my friends who are even playing it, you know, casually, they are screenshotting it and sharing it with people. It's hilarious. So I would love to see that series come back to Nintendo.
I'd love to see it just so I can get a chance to play it, because I honestly haven't dipped into it. I do have another one here on my list, though. Only one more, which just comes to mind instantly when I think of another game that I would love to replay on the Switch. And that's Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. I don't know if you've ever played that one.
Yeah, I think I did. Was that like the really high fantasy game?
It was like super high fantasy. It was,
yes.
Like, to me, I describe the Fate as being like a Fable game set in an open world type thing.
Yeah, totally. I played that on the 360. It was really fun.
Yeah, like, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And it was made by 38 Studios, which is this whole complication that I won't go into what happened there. But like, basically, finally now it's come back into the limelight with THQ Nordic picking up the rights for it. So that means that it's possible that we could see something either along the Reckoning line or this game come back somehow. So that's definitely a game that I would kind of like to see come back on the Switch.
Yeah, I would really love that, actually, because my biggest problem was, well, this came out during like the big heyday of QTEs, right? So a lot of finishing moves, because it's like an action RPG kind of thing, a lot of finishing moves would be like, okay, now quickly mash A, and, you know, real quickly. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm mashing A. Oh, no, I'm mashing B, because I'm used to the Nintendo layout of Y being on the left, X being on the top, and so on and so forth. The
Why is this not universal?
yeah, or at least when Xbox created their friggin' controller, why didn't they just go with something else? Like when PlayStation did theirs, they did square, X, circle, you know.
Exactly.
And so, oh god, that just drives me nuts, man. Drives me so nuts. So I always screwed up on the QTEs. So I would love to see it on Nintendo.
Did you have any more on your list?
Actually, I have a couple more, but I'll just mention them in passing. Nier Automata, because that game is fantastic. I would love to just see more people playing that game, and it's a platinum game. We've already got the platinum audience there for like. I don't want to say that all platinum games are the same, but which definitely they're not. It's just that there's a platinum vibe to the action brawler. Yeah. So there's the Bayonetta audience that is growing on Nintendo platforms. So Nier Automata should be an easy sell for them, it's a super good game. Another one is Divinity: Original Sin. That is a very Baldur's Gate inspired game.
Classic PC RPGs. I love it.
And those, I think, fit really well on the Switch as being portable. And especially Divinity: Original Sin, you can play with another person. And like if it was on the PlayStation, your screen would be split and they could go off anywhere in the frickin' world. And you could go off anywhere in the world. You could be basically playing two different games, but just on the same TV and on the same hardware. It was really wild, and it's perfect for like if you sit down and you got a partner or a family member that loves playing video games. It's perfect for that. So it'd be a good fit on the Switch because you can do the 2 console thing, just like with Diablo, right? But I mean, instead of being like in the same level and somewhere else, you're literally anywhere in the world, anywhere, and it's awesome.
That sounds really cool. I did not know that, and it's certainly for me that's the type of game that I've been meaning to get into. I've actually picked it up and just never found the time to go on it. But I'm going to slide myself into this.
And then the last one that I do want to mention is Persona, because the SMT franchise has been on Nintendo platforms lots, and Persona has always been on PlayStation, but not for any particular reason that I'm aware of. They just kind of started there and they just kept going there, and PlayStation's always been a high seller, so it just always makes sense. So seeing Persona come over would be great. SMT5 is already being made for the Switch, so it's an overlapping audience.
That's just one of those games that I just have no doubt if it hit the Switch, it would sell well, because like it just has this major dedicated audience that's so like, I don't know, like excited about those games, and it gets me excited having all these other people going, you've got to play this, and like again, it's a type of game that I would totally get into. I just never found the time to.
Well, maybe if there was a Switch port, maybe you would.
I would. I totally would.
Okay, and so speaking of Switch ports, this is a really bad segue. Never mind.
There's no such thing as a good segue. It's all a lie.
One little piece of news that I do want to touch on because it's a little interesting. It's always fun to talk about Zelda. Nintendo posted 2 new positions for hire, specifically to work on an upcoming Zelda game. They posted a 3D CG designer and a level designer position. So, thoughts about this? Is this could potentially a spin-off or upcoming main entry? And when should we be expecting the next big Zelda?
So, like, as far as the job relatings, I don't think that's that interesting as part of the news, but I always enjoy news like this because it gets the old brain cells like kind of pumping and thinking about, what could, Zelda, that's right, we had a game called Breath of the Wild Zelda, and it was amazing. What could the next one kind of be? And what are we expecting, and what do we want? And for me, like, I just jump back to Breath of the Wild, and I see a lot of people saying, going back even further in the past and saying, Ocarina of Time to, what was the one after that, Majora's Mask, they used a lot of the same assets and tool set and were able to pump that out really quickly. That's the same thing that I want with Breath of the Wild. And I gotta ask you, Oni, is that what you want from Breath of the Wild? Do you want them to use a lot of the same stuff, like assets and things like that, to be able to pump out a new game in that kind of vein?
So, if my option is either that or the next the next Zelda game coming out in 6 or 7 more years, then yeah, I would like a little spin-off to hold me over like that, using some assets, redoing maybe the physics engine or whatever abilities you have. Maybe you play as a different character. Maybe you play as Zelda. You know what I mean? And you're a totally different character. It feels totally different, so it doesn't just feel like DLC that should have been sold differently. It should be, a new game, and just a totally different style of play set in a very similar world. That way they could pump it out in 2 years or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Now coming into this, like I was strongly on camp. I don't want that. Like I want. I just wanted to work on a new project and I want something that's different. I certainly don't want just another Breath of the Wild that's slightly different. But then thinking about it more logically, and jumping back to the old Majora's Mask kind of conclusion that I was going with there before, I wouldn't mind it if they did this as long as they really kind of mixed up what we were doing. Again, like Majora's Mask, it was completely different as far as it had this new, completely different mechanic with the time and everything happening. The world still felt like really kind of unique and different compared to what you were doing before. And so it kind of changed the way that you were playing this Zelda game. Of course, you were still going through dungeons and still doing things like that, but it changed the way that you were playing it. And so for one, if they did do that, that's certainly what I want. I don't want Majora's Mask, but I want them to find a new way to play with the gameplay and new expectations and a new way to play that world. And I'm not sure if that's what other people would want. And the other thing that I see a lot of people mentioning is that they would want dungeons. And to me, I love Zelda dungeons in my top-down Zelda. When I get into 3D Zeldas, I don't really love the dungeons as much. I know, like, a lot of people, that's kind of blasphemy to say because there's a lot of good dungeons out there and a lot of people love the good dungeons that there is. But for me, like, I enjoyed Zelda's world more in Breath of the Wild without dungeons than I enjoyed the puzzle rooms more than any dungeon that I'd ever done.
So I'm a bit opposite of that, where I really enjoy the 3D Zelda dungeons. Some of them are too easy. That's always my complaint, is that they're too easy. Some of them are great. I did miss dungeons in Breath of the Wild, and that would be like my only complaint. But I understood the balance act of what they did and why they are not included in Breath of the Wild. The shrines served as like little mini ideas that you would see in a dungeon. So I was fine with that. But I would like to see dungeons come back if the balancing was made appropriate for them.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting that two sides of the spectrum, because like I definitely think that I'm in the minority there. I definitely think that Zelda dungeons is why a lot of people pay the 3D Zeldas and they love them, and so like it would definitely be remiss if they weren't in the next game.
Mm-hmm. So wondering about will be in the next game, the next set of DLC for Smash Ultimate is entirely decided, according to Masahiro Sakurai. He released a statement on Twitter saying that it's already decided, the lineup, and it's made entirely by Nintendo, whatever that means.
It's a strange statement to make, isn't it?
Isn't it? I think that me just reading into it, when he says made entirely by Nintendo, I think he means we're not doing a voting poll like we did on the 3DS and Wii U editions, because they asked, everybody poll, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Is that what you take away? Because I took it away as in like I don't really know, but I thought that Nintendo ran the poll. So when they said that we're stepping away, it's Nintendo based now, I thought, oh well, maybe they're going 100% in on the poll. But if it's run by, if it was run by them, then I'd assume that we can count the poll out.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. None of us really know exactly what this means, but it's exciting and worrying at the same time. So let me dial it back just a second. For those who don't know, Smash, of course, announced some DLC. They announced a fighter pass of 5 DLC characters along with stages and music. So there are 5 more characters coming post-launch throughout 2019 and possibly into 2020, I believe. So those characters have already been announced. People got excited and they're like, oh, I want this character, I want that character. Already in a game that has 70 friggin' something characters. Like, it's just nuts. Like, Sakurai is like trying to feed you tons of stuff to the point where you're like, no, I'm sick. And it's, no, you're going to eat it. You sit here and eat your dinner, It's
always fun to speculate on characters.
Yeah.
But it feels like that's almost the only conversation around Smash now. Like,
that's exactly what it is. It's not even a fighter anymore. It's just the huge crossover and who's going to be in it. And for the extremely toxic people who are definitely all over the place when it comes to Smash, it's when is my pick going to be in the game,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's all about me, and I want to know why. I want to know why my character is not into it, or not in it. It's only going to get worse too.
Yeah, I think Smash one day will just evolve into a game that's just like, you open it up, it's just a folder of all the JPEGs from anything that people request. In fact, you know, that's kind of what Spirit Modes is, isn't it?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. But he's not fighting, so therefore it's not my character. It's why? Why is he not in there? And they have all these characters. Why couldn't mine be in there? That's the mentality that's going to be going throughout, and I'm going to scream. You know what I mean?
So surely that you have some sort of character that you're like, people are complaining about their characters, but I want this one in there. Surely you have one character.
I do, but I mean, I'm not going to be a crazy person and like harass Sakurai and like all these other people on Twitter to the point where Sakurai actually made another tweet that I do want to read in a moment about that. But yeah, of course I do have characters I would love to see in there. I wanted to see Bomberman as a playable character. And I did have, I don't know, I got some other ones that I wanted to see, but like at this point, like there's just so much crap happening in there that I can't even remember that, like, for example, Pac-Man is in the game. I forgot he was in the game. Like there's just so much stuff in that game that I'm just like, oh, let's go. Like, show me what you got, Sakurai. Like, let's go. You know?
Yeah, I know. I'm the same. I'm on board. I'm just like, I'm kind of similar, but like to me, I don't even want to. I don't have a character that I'm like, I need this character in there. I'm just like, nah, I have too much. There's just too much as it is.
That's what Sakurai wants. He wants you to be like, this is too much. That way, the next eventual release is something totally different.
Exactly. Like, because right now I'm just like, oh my god, what even is Rob? I try to play as Rob, and he's just like this horrible mess that like floats across the ground. He's so clunky. Get him out. We don't need Rob.
You heard it here first. All the Rob fans, let us know what you think about that by writing in.
Oh, that'd be great. I'm gonna get some Rob fan hate mail now.
But I wanted to say that, like, I hope that like the game, when you get it, the physical copy, and you open it up, it's just like those silly snakes that pop out of nowhere, and it's just got like character faces all over it. That's what I would love. I would just love if Sakurai did something like that.
That'd be really funny.
So going back to that tweet I was talking about, like, clearly people are just going nuts, you know, about characters and, oh, but please do this. I want to see this. Oh, this is a lazy game if it doesn't have my character in it, that kind of crap. So yeah. Sakurai actually had a very curt comment of basically, listen, chill out. I'll read it here. So, quote, "It's great to dream about your favorite character joining the battle, and I appreciate your passion, but please try to stay on topic when replying to tweets and refrain from flooding us and other users with requests when we're not specifically asking for feedback. Thank you."
You know what that tweet was filled with right after then?
Oh,
requests for characters.
Yeah, I could totally see that. They're like, why no Gino? Why no Gino?
Exactly. It's like everyone in there, it's like, that's all good, but when are you adding this character? Like, straight off topic, straight away again. Like, it doesn't. The thing is like, people, gamers, everyone, we're fans of things, and like, obviously we can't help that. Like, when you love a character and you want a character, like you just want a new game or want something. Obviously, you're just a fan of it and you want it to be everywhere. But just like maybe think about, like Sakurai says, maybe think about just staying on topic sometimes when it's not required for you to be shouting about that. Like, you have your own Twitter account, go shout about it on there.
No, shut up. Shut up. Put Goku in the game, Sakurai. Shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah.
That's what's happening.
Basically, yeah. Like, I'm surprised you could even like tweet this. Like you said, I'm surprised the tweet just didn't say, "Hey, listen, shut up."
Yeah, yeah. Or get for, you know.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Something serious. So on that Sakurai note, a little thing that I wanted to bring attention to is that Kirby Star Allies announced their third wave of free DLC. The new characters, well, the new Dream Friends to the game from past games are Magalore from Kirby's Return to Dreamland, Taranza from Triple Deluxe, and Susie from Planet Robobot. I wanted to bring attention to this because there's a whole bunch of friggin' free DLC that keeps happening for Kirby, like substantial DLC for Kirby Star Allies, and I think that this needs to be applauded so much more. I wanted to discuss a little bit about like, and plus not even just the characters, there's also like a post-story hard mode that's also coming. It's called Another Dimension Heroes mode, and you play as the Dream Friends, like just a whole bunch of little like fun, cool, free stuff, and that's fantastic. It certainly goes in line with Nintendo's strategy that they've been talking about recently, offering additional content, whether it's, you know, paid or free, post-launch over an extended period of time, keeping games fresh. What are your thoughts about this?
So, like, first of all, my thoughts on the kind of mode that they added and the new characters and stuff. I feel like this is a middle finger to, like, anyone who thinks that Kirby is too easy. Like, watching the gameplay of that, I was just like, that looks really hard. Like, I struggled on the final boss fight of Kirby as it was, and then, like, watching this new fight of it and, like, the new world, I'm like, okay, yeah, like, I get it, guys. You know, there's just, like, some people out there who think it's too hard. There's some people who actually enjoy Kirby the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, I love that they added that. Although I hope that we never ever get a Kirby game that's hard. I like Kirby the way it is, to be honest. Like, Kirby to me is just this fun little romp around the Kirby world. It's so colourful and vibrant and fun. Like, I don't mind them. They have more, I guess, better puzzles and designs like that. But as far as difficulty to an actual Kirby game, God, stay out of it. I don't want difficulty in there. I don't need Kirby Dark Souls, you know.
So for me though, like, I agree with you, but I want that to be like, okay, you play through the whole story mode and you think you're done, you know? And that's only 1/4 of your adventure, really. Yes. Like, the real stuff is starting next, and it's ramping up. It's ramping up and it's ramping up. And that's what they've kind of been doing with especially Kirby Star Allies and a couple of the previous games. But they've just been knocking it out of the park in terms of, like, appealing to Kirby fans and especially people who have kind of grown up playing Kirby games. And I could not be more elated and more satisfied with the direction that Kirby has been going, especially with, like, the crazy ridiculous lore that they're, like, weaving together. Shout outs to Woolly Verses on YouTube for putting together all of these Kirby lore videos, sort of exposing the dark underbelly of Kirby lore. It's fantastic. Check it out if you're even interested.
How do they explain it? Kirby is just, like, the most ridiculous series. Like, I'm gonna have to, because the Kirby is the most ridiculous series I've ever, like, maybe the Kingdom Hearts is up there, probably higher than Kirby, but, like, next to Kingdom Hearts sits Kirby as far as, like, ridiculous fights and ridiculous bosses, and, like, you just don't know why is Kirby inside the depths of hell fighting, like, literal Satan spawns, you know? I don't know what's going on.
Just another day in pink marshmallow life, you know what I mean? Like, that's why Kirby survived in the Smash Bros thing from that gigantic Final Fantasy monster. He's like, oh, another one of these, oh, get the F out of here. I know, I've handled this before. It was cool. Hi.
You made a really good point about the kind of, like, at the end game, that's where Kirby should ramp up in difficulty. It kind of reminds me of Mario games, where like, at the end of a Mario games aren't that hard to really finish. Like, there's several parts that are just like, oh my god, I keep falling in this lava. But it's never really like, this is super difficult. But if you want that challenge, like, once you finish the main game, there's a few extra worlds there that are going to really challenge even the most, like, expert players.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know how they pull that off in a Kirby game, but I would love to kind of see what they do with that. But like you said, this isn't the only Nintendo game that's kind of going with this DLC model, and it's really, I don't know, I really like it. Like, you know, things like Breath of the Wild, which got those big packs of DLC. Splatoon is obviously, like, the starliner for just constantly new things coming out for that. Mario Tennis Aces, they're, like, adding to that pack now of stuff that they're constantly adding new characters and things like that. And we've seen in the past things like ARMS and other games get supported. So, like, I'm definitely a big part of it. And I love it when it's a game that I'm playing. In the case of Kirby, it's not a game that I'm really going back to, so I don't know whether I will. But for, like, people who are playing it or people who are picking up now, this is just fantastic. And it's good support for that game.
Absolutely. And also blasphemous that you are not going back to it. You need to go back to it right now.
I don't know. Going back to Kirby to challenge myself with some more harder gameplay, I don't know whether I'm down for that.
So, speaking of challenging yourself with post-content DLC, something I wanted to talk about that's not directly related to Nintendo, but is tangentially related to Nintendo, is the big news about Final Fantasy 15. That happened a couple of days ago.
These segues, by the way.
Oh, am I? There was one I really flubbed. Okay, this was the only good one, I think.
No. It helps when people point out that you're nailing them as well, because then people actually realize that you're doing a segue. So go on.
Okay. So, segue, wink, wink. Final Fantasy 15 had some big news a couple of days ago. They had a second anniversary live stream of the launch of 15, and the second anniversary live stream, fans were excited for it. They were expecting some announcements about the season 2 DLC.
It's a live stream. What's not to be excited about?
Yeah, nothing but happiness, right? Season 2 DLC is all coming out in 2019, so maybe we'll get some gameplay, maybe some info, maybe release windows. Instead, they dashed dreams and used the live stream to announce pure despair and sadness.
They live streamed a funeral. Let's put it that way.
They did. They live streamed not only a funeral, they live streamed kicking a body into an open grave. So let's dial it back just a moment here. Final Fantasy 15 came out 2 years ago. They had season 1 of DLC after that. Then they released a physical version called the Royal Edition, and that included the DLC. They announced a second season of DLC. All of this fleshes out a whole bunch of characters and stories. So that's what's supposed to be coming out in 2019. This live stream not only announced that they're canceling all of that except for one episode that is already just too far along in development, they also announced that the director of the game left Square Enix apparently less than 2 weeks ago at the end of October. And on their anniversary live stream of all occasions, like, it's just wild, dude. It's so weird.
I can't believe, like, what were they thinking or doing with this? Like, was there not a better way to announce all of this type of stuff? And also, it's been 2 years since Final Fantasy 15 came out. How is there still a big plan for DLC for that game? What is going? It's like, do they have like they're going to continue a 10-year plan with it or something? Or
basically, because they already had a 10-year plan before it was even friggin' made. So, like, okay. Final Fantasy 15 is nuts, right? So I'm very much interested in the game, and I very much want to play it. I've been waiting for the game to be finished. That's why I haven't played it, really. I've just been waiting for the season 2 to come out and just, like, be finished, and then, like, all right, I'm going all in. Like, I'm looking forward to it, right? So another thing I want to mention, though, before I jump into that, is that the director, his name is Hajime Tabata. He resigned apparently last month. But he was talking all about the Season 2 DLC being exciting, and he couldn't wait for it. He was talking about that at the end of September, like not even a month prior to his resignation. So that's fishy. You know what I mean? It's he was
talking about that in his resignation letter, literally, going, it's going to be really exciting. I hope you're looking forward to it. I'm not going to be there anymore, but I hope you're really looking forward to it.
Oh my God. Like, it's like Square Enix called up Konami and they're like, listen, we got this dude. And then Konami's like, we know, like something happened there. And then at the same time, Square also announced a $33 million or 33 USD. Oh, Jesus, hold on. $33 million loss. Did I say that right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was right.
All right. So just bad times all around. It's like, what is going on, Square? So, all right, the 10-year thing that I was talking about just a moment again, catch up. A lot of twists. Got to catch up. So 15 had 10 years of development, basically. Switched console generations. It was originally called Versus 13. It was supposed to be a spin-off of 13, or not spin-off, but like related in the world. Tetsuya Nomura was originally the director, and Tetsuya Nomura has always done like concept art, character art, graphics, and stuff like that on Final Fantasy games dating back to Final Fantasy IV. He's also worked on like Parasite Eve and a whole bunch of other Square properties. He found big fame with directing Kingdom Hearts. And so that's why he was really pushed into this, not pushed, but I mean, put into the director's chair for 15. The development was completely overly ambitious, and they just kept expanding and expanding the project, and it was like unbridled creativity on Nomura's part. It's, when you have a creative person and you don't have a producer that doesn't know about creativity but knows about money and knows about like time crunch and like workflow, and they're not like, tapping my watch here, and then like this creative guy is just like, no, but what if it had this? And what if it had that? That was basically what was going on.
Exactly.
There was even a time when Nomura apparently wanted to turn 15 into a musical because he was so captivated when he saw the new Les Miserables movie. Like, just craziness happening all the time. The game also changed engines from Crystal Tools to Luminous Engine. Then a producer was taken off, writer was taken off, Hajime Tabata was brought on as co-director, then Nomura was kicked off, Tabata restructured everything. It just went full bonkers. I could go into it more, but don't want to go too far into it on a Nintendo-related podcast, right? But Final Fantasy 15 ultimately ended up becoming like a multimedia project that spans anime, I think books, a movie, and then the main game, all vital story. And so it's like you're asking too much of your consumer and you're fans even of the game with all of this fragmented story.
With Square is that Square is a company, Square Enix. Their vision as when they make games is that they want to be across multiple multimedia products and have you experience it everywhere, and it just doesn't really work as like the fact that I had to go watch this is just one part of it, but I had to go watch the Kingsglaive movie before I could actually play Final Fantasy 15 to understand the story. I didn't want to do that, but I was like, okay, I'll do that so I have some sort of background there. And now they've got new DLC coming out, and they're releasing like this new Season 2 DLC that's coming out, the Arden one. They're releasing, I forget what they exactly said, whether it was like just a short film or whatever it is. There's something short to go along with that sets up the story in the first place. So even the DLC has story set up that you have to experience somewhere to experience the DLC. And it's just like, oh my God, guys, get it together. What is all this stuff that's kind of happening around there? And even to the point of like, the way that they create games from the ground up is the problem, because they're much different to Nintendo. A lot of us know that Nintendo, when they create games, they create an idea in the first place, and then they expand that idea, put characters around it, and so they have the gameplay and set in the first place. Now, Square Enix have said that the way that they create games is that they come up with a story, they come up with art and the way the game's going to look, and then they decide on what kind of gameplay suits it. It's a very different concept, and that's why sometimes in my opinion, I believe they got stuck in this kind of development hell situation of being like, we have this idea for a story that constantly keeps on changing, and the gameplay, we're not finalizing anything on it.
Yeah, and that's the real thing that I think we need to get to. That's the meat and potatoes of this, is what is going on with Square's biggest projects in the last like 10 to 15 years. You know, we've seen Kingdom Hearts, we've seen Final Fantasy VII Remake especially, which is looking to be way more of a show, way more than 15 is. Like, things are just going kind of nuts over there. It's like a parent, right? That means well, doesn't really pay attention to their kid enough though, and like has a bunch of money, and they're like, oh, do what you like, go have fun and do the thing. And then the kid like is a kid, so it doesn't like know better, but you know, it means well and it's doing stuff, and it's like, hey, what about this is what I brought back to you. And then the parent's like, oh my God, what is this? Like, put that in the trash, like, don't do that. Let's flush all that money and all that time down the toilet, start over.
You don't, like, if you're playing a mobile free-to-play game, you don't give your kid your phone and expect that he's not going to wind up with thousands of dollars of credit card bills on there. He's just going to go nuts, you know, and that's the situation that we're in with Square Enix.
Yeah, and like, in weird ways, it's like, you think that, okay, they're being an overly generous company to the designers and the creative minds over there, right? But it's not even coming out that like a really creative project that didn't have good focus is coming out. You know what I mean? The direction and the creation is also being stifled in some way. This is purely speculative, but it hurts me because I am such a big fan of Final Fantasy games. I don't know, I should have probably started with that, but I really am a big fan of Final Fantasy games, dating back to the Super Nintendo, and because I didn't play the NES ones. It hurts me to see this, because, you know, when you see something so big, you're like, oh, it can't fail. But I mean, we are seeing some things failing, and I don't know. I just don't want to ever see Square suddenly be like, we have to sell off our IP. You know? Yeah,
exactly. I think that's the biggest thing, is that, like, for me, again, I'm the same as you. I have a big attachment to Square IP. I don't want to see them go anywhere. Does this $33 million loss mean they're going anywhere? Probably not. Right. Almost definitely not. Like, this is like, you know, when you see Nintendo reporting on big losses, this happens with companies. And in fact, like in this case, I believe it was a projected loss, meaning that like at this time of year, they were expecting to earn this much money, but they didn't earn that much. They earned $33 million less than they were expecting to earn.
I see.
And so, like, which is typical, because, like, which is kind of understandable, because did they have a big game coming out at this point of the year? Like, apart from I guess they just had Dragon Quest, didn't they?
Well, when is Kingdom Hearts supposed to come out? Like, I just like,
I thought that was early next year.
Is it next year? Like,
yeah,
man, the ship has sailed, sunk, and nobody cared on Kingdom Hearts for me, because like the story is so convoluted and retconned, and oh man, we could do a whole episode on that. I'll tell you what, I just do a rant cast on that.
See, I haven't paid attention to any of the Kingdom Hearts stories, so like to me, I'm still like going in there going, oh, it doesn't have a story, it's just a bunch of Disney characters, but like, and then I'm going to jump in and just be like, what is going on?
Oh yeah, what hearts, keys, darkness, unlocking?
Yeah, it's going to be, when did the Toy Story train crash into this shit show? Like, I don't know what happened here. But yeah, like, so I'm still curious about it, but like, I have my cautions just because everyone keeps going on about that story, like how convoluted the story is, and so I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. But yeah, anyway, that's the kind of point here, is that like it shouldn't mean all doom and gloom for them. It's a projected loss, and hopefully they can bounce back from this. But it does mean that something is certainly not right there, and something needs to be fixed.
Totally agree, and I really hope that they can turn it around. I wish I could offer like more insight to that, but
I thought you were going to say money. I'm like, I don't think you have enough to kind of cover that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not giving Square my money in that regard. I'll support your video games, but like, make them, please. Like, make them exactly. Faster than 15 years. Like, I would like to see Final Fantasy VII before I die.
Oh, that's not happening. Like, come on, like Final Fantasy. I don't want to get into that, but Final Fantasy VII, like, this is ridiculous. It's going to be so far away. It's going to be another 10-year plan of like, it's changed this directions and this has changed, and now Final Fantasy VII is actually Final Fantasy 17.
Yeah, like it's just going to turn into the next one. Yeah, you know, as an aside, when I was little, like with the Final Fantasies and stuff, like they were coming out at a much quicker pace than this, and I was like, oh, okay, well, they're, you know, doing the Roman numerals. I like Roman numerals. And I was like, okay, this is, you know, 8, and then this is 9, and then this is 10. Oh, 10 is X.
I was going to say, is that all it took when you were a kid? Roman numerals. I like Roman numerals.
No, that's not why. It's just, I don't know. I like languages, and I like numbers, and I like writing things out. So anyway, but my point of leading it into Roman numerals is that when they did 10, I was like, oh, X. And I was like, oh, what are they going to do when they reach 30? Are they really going to write XXX? And I was like, well, I guess I'll see when that time comes. Here I am. Like, I am not going to see Final Fantasy 30 released by the time that I'm alive or before I die. I mean, like, they just release them too infrequently now. I'm never going to see Final Fantasy 30. And it's a bit of an existential crisis, okay, for my childhood.
that's like your biggest thing. Like, you're just going to be holding on your deathbed. I've got to hold on until Final Fantasy XXX release.
Yeah. What are they going to call it?
What are they going to do?
It's Fabula Crystallis Novella Exilus. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. And then I give my final exhale.
They'll have a hard reboot by then, surely.
Okay, we are back with some listener mail. Again, before we start going into that, thank you for all of your emails and your comments and suggestions for us. If you have an email and you really want to send it to these two guys, you can send it to nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com. What's that email, Eric?
That's nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
And your email might sound a little something like this.
Robin says, what portable series or game would you love to see return on the Switch? Personally, I had my wish granted when The World Ends With You was ported, but I would love to see a Mario and Luigi make a return. Thanks for the show, and I love reading and now listening to Nintendo Everything. Thanks, Robin.
Oh, thank you. That's like super sweet.
I know, I love that. Although, Robin, I've got to say, you didn't add like watching in there either.
Step it up, Robin. Come on.
Come on, Robin. No, thank you, Robin. So what series would you like to see as far as portable series kind of return on the Switch?
Yeah. So something that is a bit related to that is the Theatrhythm series. I would love to see just more of that game, more music. Just throw it all at me, pour it on me, because I can't get enough of Final Fantasy music and other Square music, like music from Chrono Trigger, Parasite Eve. Even go into Dragon Quest, you know? Like, if I remember right, there was a Dragon Quest Theatrhythm.
There was. I just don't... Right? Was that Japanese only, or did it release over here? I honestly can't remember.
Probably Japanese only.
Yeah, I do remember there being a Dragon Quest Theatrhythm, though. So that's definitely something that I would love to get into. And I think that kind of... when the 3DS starts to slow down, which it obviously has, it's going to need a new place to go. And I think Switch is kind of the perfect place for that Theatrhythm to go.
Absolutely. Another one that I would like to see, and I'm sure lots of people would like to see because it needs to exist in some capacity, Golden Sun. That's always been on handhelds. Just Just make another one, for God's sake.
It certainly does need another one, and that's like one of those ones that a lot of people are kind of asking for that Smash character. You know, I see a lot of Isaac love out there for Golden Sun, so I don't know. Maybe we'll see something like that return. I don't know how well the last Golden Sun game did, because like obviously we had was it 2 on Game Boy Advance, and then we didn't see them for a long time until the DS or 3DS one came back. So
yeah, 2 GBAs and 1 DS if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, and so like I'm wondering how well that DS one actually did, whether Nintendo's looking at it and going, we need a good idea for this game before we bring it back again.
I don't even care. Like, it's just been gone so long. Like, I don't care. Do whatever with it, and just have some of the bones left over, and you can make a new meal.
They're definitely some of my like kind of favorite past games that I played on the GBA. Now for myself, I've kind of got one that I would really like to see is Mega Man Battle Network.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Did you ever play the Mega Man Battle Network games?
A bit. I dabbled in it a bit because my friend had it, so we exchanged carts or something like that. So I just played it a little bit, but those games are very charming.
Yeah, I was like kind of, this was my Mega Man, because like I like enjoyed old Mega Man, but I really only played like the X game, and I just played that over and over again on the Super Nintendo. So like I didn't really play that many other Mega Man games. I certainly went back to play them, but I didn't love them as much as I enjoyed Mega Man Battle Network, because it was an RPG. Like it was just that, and like it kind of took this kind of spin on the world that I hadn't seen in games up until this point, like having this half cyber world and then half real world based game. And the combat was really cool, the way it was like these 2 grid based, that like the enemies on one side of the grid and you're on the other, and you're using these grid based attacks that depends on like the cards that you have, and all the cards that you collect in the game are based on the enemies that you're defeating. And so it was just kind of this game that we haven't seen in a while, and I'd love to see it come back. And it's kind of the thing that it kind of reminds me of a game like Bait and Kaitos, is because they're both kind of these these card battling games that use monster cards and stuff like that to help you battle. And I think I miss the days of like having these really, really good card battling games like that.
Yeah, especially games like Battle Network and Baten Kaitos. They did card battling so well. They made every battle unique and interesting and exciting to play, and you could never like just relax. You could never just be like, I mash the A button kind of thing. Like, it was great. Yeah, man, I am such a big fan of Baten Kaitos.
I know, me too. Like, you couldn't just use the attack button and just use attack and then use magic whenever you wanted. You had to like really consider what you were doing and where you were setting it up. And that's kind of why I like these kind of card battling games. And I think they need a resurgence. I think we need some card battling games to come back. And I'm also very jealous that America got the Origins in that series, where in Australia we only ever got I forget the something of the Lost Ocean or something about that. We only ever got that game.
Endless Ocean, something Lost Wings. I don't remember.
Yeah, something Lost Wings. But yeah, we only ever got that game, so I never got to play apparently the superior version in the game.
Well, I'm gonna throw a twist at you. That game came out pretty late and didn't make a lot of copies, I think, because it's extremely rare right now, and I never got to play it either.
Oh, didn't you?
It's super expensive. No, it goes for I think like $100 or something stupid. So I would just love to see a GameCube virtual console or something. Like, just let me buy these games for $20.
Yeah, bring that back.
And I'll give the money to the developers. Just let me do that. Sorry, Robin, we went way off on your question.
Yeah, sorry. I do have a couple more portable games here. Final Fantasy Tactics. Like a lot of people probably think of this, and they might think of like it being on PS1 or something like that if they're thinking of that the War of the Lions, but that's not where I'm going with it. I kind of edge much towards the GBA titles and the DS titles. I really enjoyed those Final Fantasy Tactics games, and I'd love to see them make a return.
I am all for tactics games like that. I actually had not played the sequels in the Tactics series, Final Fantasy Tactics series. I played the Ogre Battle games, and I played the War of the Lions, the first Final Fantasy Tactics game, and its PSP remake. And that game is so good, so good. So yeah, I am all for that. Even re-release the old ones.
And one last one, which is a bit of a weird pick considering I'd never actually played the game, is Rocket Slime.
Oh, Rocket Slime. Why do I know that name? Oh, it was the Dragon Quest spin-off, right? Dragon Quest?
It definitely helped when I put Dragon Quest before Rocket Slime, by the way. But yeah, Dragon Quest Rocket Slime, it was just kind of this game that I don't think it ever really took off, or maybe it only took off in Japan. But that game was just kind of like, I've watched my partner play a bunch of it, and I've just seen a bunch of footage, and it's like it's really, really has me interested to actually play it. And I'd like to kind of see that series, maybe not just take a return, but actually have a new game in the series hit the Switch.
Yeah, that would be really exciting. I've heard nothing but good things about it that I can recall. I heard it was pretty weird, pretty different, and just kind of off the wall. And that is right up my alley.
Yeah, like so, I think the whole idea behind it is that first of all, you play as what should always be the mascot of a Dragon Quest game because it's the most recognizable character, and that's the slime. And then like it has this kind of top-down combat where you use the stylus to fling rocket slime around the world to solve puzzles and do battles. Yeah, it's a really cool game.
Very cool. So let's move on to another email that we got. This email comes from Kazuo. Kazuo says, regarding Japan-only games, he says, first, if you have played a Japanese game or more, what is one of your favorites if you have one? Second, he's a two-parter. He's
getting double in there.
Yeah. Cheating a little. Second, is there a game you'd like to try out that you haven't been able to yet? For me, an obscure game that I love was part of the Nintendo Game Seminar 2013. Wow.
Whoa.
A Nintendo Game Seminar 2013 collection on Wii U called Shima Nagame or Island View. It's a rather cute game where you guide a character called Cloud-kun, cute, around a small map to collect stars with a few items like apples for him to eat or a tree branch to play with. Oh, it's so cute! It's better to see for yourself, I think, so I'd recommend looking it up on YouTube. Might also come across my own short video I took of myself playing it. Also, EX Troopers on 3DS/PS3 is a fantastic game that I highly recommend. And for a game I'd like to play, I've been intrigued by Captain Rainbow, yes, but to be honest, I hardly know anything about it still. Thanks, Kazuo. So I have to go along with Kazuo on Captain Rainbow. Captain Rainbow is probably a game that you've heard of.
I have.
It's a really weird game that came out on the Wii. Did you say you had heard it?
I have heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
So it's a really weird game that came out on the Wii, I think only in Japan. And it has a lot of Nintendo IP in there, but it's in a really crude way. Like Little Mac is in there, but he's like super overweight and he's like struggling. And like
You're kidding.
Birdo's in no, for real. And like Birdo's in there and like you got to find a vibrator for her. Like
oh, Jesus.
It's weird. Yeah, it's crazy. And I forgot who you play as or like what exactly is going on, but I know you go around on like this island. Oh, well, you must play as Captain Rainbow. Okay, that's got to be it. And you go around on this island and you're like trying to figure out some quests to do, and you do like little mini games if I remember right. So I really want to check that out because it's such an oddity and I love that.
Yeah, that sounds really weird. I'd love just like I almost just have to go look up some gameplay footage after just to see what this is like.
Yes, it's too intriguing. I just realized that I'm answering his questions in reverse order, so sorry, Kazuo. Again, on that second game that I'd like to try out that I haven't tried out yet, Fatal Frame 2 remake on the Nintendo Wii. That came out in Japan and Europe. I'm not sure about Australia, but it definitely never came out in the States. And so I've just never picked it up. I always keep forgetting about it since I have the opportunity to pick it up now. And I just really want to play that because I loved the original Fatal Frame 2. So I would like to see this remake and how they do some things. And I don't know, that game's just fantastic.
Like as far as games that I got into that Japanese made, that are like only in Japan, Japanese. I don't know what I'm going with here. But for me, it was like when I was a child, there's always a big dream of mine to be able to, read Japanese so I could play all these games that are like stuck in a country far, far away that I don't know about. But then obviously one of the two of us actually learned how to do that and the other didn't.
It's never too late.
No, but that didn't stop me from picking up some Japanese only games. And in particular, it was one that we played we talked about a little bit earlier. So Ni no Kuni Domain of the Dark Djinn. I picked that up for DS, one out of curiosity, and two because I got the PS3 version, which was Wrath of the Wild Witch, and as we talked about, that was pretty much the same game, just with a lot of extra stuff in it, reworked combat, a lot of changes, but the same kind of story and game. And so I picked that up for PS3, and it never came with the the kind of collector stuff. So like the book that came with it, your wizard's companion, so to say, and because I missed out on all of that. Eventually, one of my friends was over in Japan and said, I see this game, I've seen it in the stores, would you like me to get it? And there was an extremely good price. So like I was like, yes, please get that. And they brought it back home for me. I have tried to play the game now. Unfortunately, not knowing Japanese, I have not made it far into it. I've only kind of got like dabbled to the first town and got a little bit out of that. But I really kind of wish that I did know how to play that, because the combat is so like intriguingly different compared to the way the Wrath of the White Witch plays. Like I do enjoy that one anyway, but it's certainly something that because it's one of my favorite series, I would love to know more about its origins. And again, that's why I kind of picked it up.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe you can look up some videos or some things where they're like, okay, well, this is at least this and this is at least that, so you can sort of go along.
There's definitely ways to play it. I can't remember, but I believe there's a semi-done fan translation out there, perhaps, and I think there is, like I've read into it before, there are other ways for you to play it. Like I think there are YouTube videos that you could watch someone to kind of get an idea of where to go and what to talk to and stuff like that. But yeah, that's just kind of the one 100% Japanese game there in my collection that I just adore and just had to get. As far as games that I'd like to try, again goes back to the kind of last segment that we were talking about. I would love to try Dragon Quest Rocket Slime, but the first game in the series and the third game in the series. The reason I say that is the Rocket Slime that we actually got was the second game in the series. There wasn't obviously named that over here, so we had the first one released in Japan, and then we had the second one released in Japan and over everywhere else, and then the third one again only came to Japan. And so I'd love to see all three of those games playable in some way.
I love when localization just completely screws that up, especially with globalization. You're trying to talk to people and like things in one territory are totally different than another territory. It's so confusing, and it's so hard to explain. Like, like it really shouldn't have to be that hard, but like I was just like, I'll stumble my way through this. It's awful.
So they're kind of the Dragon Quest Rocket Slime game, as I mentioned in the last segment, is just the top of my list of games that I need to go back to when I find a spare second that I can actually break away from my Switch. And there's one bonus one bonus game here that I'd also like is maybe some of the Tales of games. I don't know much about this. I just know that the Tales of series in general is much bigger in Japan again. So I'd kind of like to see some of those titles that maybe didn't make it over here, or spin-offs or anything like that, make their way over here.
I'm a fan of the Tales games. I haven't really played any of the recent ones, just because they've kind of come out a lot. But I am a fan of some of the earlier ones and some of the, I don't know, like mid-range ones. The ones like during Symphonia.
I was gonna say, tell me era. Symphonia. If you don't tell me Symphonia right now.
Symphonia is like the middle era. So like the earlier era, I'm thinking of like Tales of Fantasia, Tales of Destiny, and Tales of Eternia. I played those. Okay. And there's another one around there too I can't think of. But anyway, good choices, because I would highly recommend the Tales series to you. So Kazuo's first question was, if you've played a Japanese game or more, what is one of your favorites? I would have to say a game on the Super Nintendo that never came over called Live Alive. Live Alive has 7 different stories and characters that you play as in any different order, and then it all comes together at the end for a couple more main scenarios of the overall story. Sound familiar? Octopath Traveler.
I was going to say, like, that sounds very... Okay, so I was way off. For some reason, like, in my head, I was jumping to, like, oh yeah, Sonic Adventure Battle 2 had, like, the light and dark, and they converged at the end.
Oh my... No, stop it. Stop it right now. I don't even care. I don't even care about Sonic Adventure.
Oh, blasphemy.
So anyway, Live Alive, there's a lot of really good Super Nintendo RPGs that never came to the West at all, and Live Alive is definitely one of them. I forgot, I think I was translating something recently, and one of the developers or the writers on Live Alive also was working on something that I was translating recently. Can't remember for the life of me what it was, but it was great to make those connections, be like, oh yeah, this is what this guy is doing. Yeah, I get it, dude. Like, you wrote some real cool stuff before.
So Octopath Traveler was the spiritual successor to Live Alive. You got 7, then 8, so yeah, okay.
I mean,
get it.
Sure, you can say all that, sure. Okay, so how about what's coming up on the site? What's coming up in this next week? Anything coming up on your end on the site, Eric?
So probably by the time this goes live, it might already be up there. But I do have an interview that I did, the last one that I'm kind of posting for now from PAX, which was with Enter the Gungeon dev Dave Crooks. Yeah, he was really interesting to talk to. He did give me some cool details about like what he's thinking about with his next game, as well as like a lot of stuff. Like there's this cool Tetris gun that was planned for Enter the Gungeon and things like that. So that's a really interesting interview, and you should definitely check that one out. Apart from that, I'm finally got over like doing all my PAX stuff that I've been running around trying to do, and I'm back on the bandwagon of making videos the normal way that I've been doing again. So I'm sure you can expect something like that coming up within the next week, if not early next weekend.
That's very cool. I'm really looking forward to that Enter the Gungeon interview. What was the guy's name you said?
Dave Crooks. He was the...
Dave Crooks.
Yeah, I think it's the lead producer. I'd have to double check that. I really should know.
That game is full of personalities. So like anybody that was behind producing or making that game, I would love to hear from them because that game is so great.
And he's just a really interesting guy to talk to as well. Like you can tell that he made the game because like he's just that type of guy that has all these ideas in his head and just, yeah, interesting to talk to.
Very cool. So for me, I don't have anything coming up in this week, but I did just post something about a week ago that I forgot to mention. It's the Octopath Traveler interview with the 4 main devs of the Asano team. In that interview, they go over all of this really great detailed and behind-the-scenes information that you never would have known unless these very people spoke about it. They talked about character origins, different ideas, different names for the characters that they had. Primrose was originally like a wandering like warrior, and Tressa was pretty different too. Her design was different, just all kinds of little things like that. They even have some of these beautiful stills that they did of Final Fantasy VI that they changed into Octopath's art style, so it was very, very clearly based on Final Fantasy VI. Stuff like that I think that the real nerdy will really love. So check that out. That should be under our features. And then in the near future will be a very, very lengthy interview with the main devs or producers and devs at Sega Ages for the Nintendo Switch, specifically going over Phantasy Star. This is a really interesting interview that I've been translating. I'm only a little bit into it so far, and it's super long, but I can't like stop reading it because it's just so fascinating. I don't want to say anything to spoil, but just look forward to it. If you're a Phantasy Star fan, you got to check it out. Even if you're not a Phantasy Star fan like me, like this will make you a fan. This is pretty interesting.
I wish that, honestly, I'm so jealous of your skill to read Japanese. Like just hearing about this stuff and like all these interviews and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I make such very little money, though. Don't you know?
I know. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So let's have another email reminder. We need some suggestions for what we want to call our segments that we got going on here. We want more emails. We want to hear what you have to say about what we have to say, some corrections about all the wrong stuff that we're telling you on this podcast. And just go ahead and ask us about current games, old games, that traumatic Street Fighter experience I once had.
Okay, Oni. I feel like there was a bit of a dig there.
I'm sorry, I went too dark.
No. Not dark enough.
That email is nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
And that is nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com. And remember, this week, if you give us a 5-star iTunes rating, you will be receiving double EXP weekend.
All right. So don't forget, you can always visit us at youtube.com/nineverything. We also have our main site, nintendoeverything.com. You can find me on Twitter at Oni_Dino. Where can they find you, Eric?
You can find me on Twitter at Nintendo Numbers. However, I said that weirdly. It's just Nintendo Numbers.
And finally, our official website's Twitter. That's at NinEverything. And don't forget, for everything Nintendo, stay tuned to Nintendo Everything. Bye.
Bye.
Rolling around at the speed of sound.